You're listening to the God Life Culture Podcast, where faith
and what's trending collide. Welcome to the latest episode of the God Life Culture Podcast. This is Eddie.
What's up, everyone? This is Miguel, and you are listening to the God Life Culture Podcast. Welcome back to a brand new episode of our podcast. We hope that you are enjoying your summer, that you are living it up, that you are taking advantage of the time off that you may have with your kids, your family, if you have off, teachers and people like that. And if you are traveling, we hope that you are enjoying just making memories and doing all of those things, as we are already in August. Mm-hmm. And we were discussing this on the way here. We just have like 4 weeks left. Technically more like 8, because summer doesn't end till like September 20th or something like that. But still, I think once September hits, we kind of start feeling like summer is over.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the perspective for that is here on the East Coast in New York, school starts the first week of September. Yeah. So once school starts, it's kind of like unofficially summer's over, and I think that's what people look at it in that way. But the good weather can last pretty much in through September, depending on how that works out. And at the end of the day, you know, there are a lot of people, me being one of those people, that although the summertime ending, quote unquote, is a little like, oh man, it kind of went by fast, but I love the fall. I really love the fall. It's something my wife was saying she's ready for sweater weather. You know, that's something that she's like really looking forward to. So it doesn't bother me when we get into that you know, that transition every time between summer and fall. It's something to look forward to.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I love fall. And it's one of those things where I really love the summer, but you know, just sometimes you're over the heat, you're over just kind of like, you know, all of that. But like you said, I think with each season, there are just different things that we begin to look forward to. And starting in September, it's just like the back to school season and all of that. And I don't know, like, I don't know if this happens with other people with other seasons or whatever, but I guess being a teacher, like towards the end of like August, it's like there's a unique smell in the air that reminds me of like back to school. Like it's just weird. I don't know. Teachers, if you can relate, you understand. But just like
trauma.
This, right? Triggers. Just like you just begin to like smell or feel like the school season is coming, and it's like it's a cool feeling. So for sure, shout out to the teachers out there, and shout out to just everyone who is enjoying the summer and having fun, right? There was actually something I read earlier. Actually, I didn't read it. Let me stop myself. I didn't read it. I read the title, but I didn't read the article. So I actually don't know what it says. But it was saying how people need to have more fun, that the Bible actually tells us to have fun. And it's like one of the things where people don't always, I guess, remember that or like actually do something about it. So I have to read the article, but it's true in the fact that, yes, we've talked about this before. We should make sure to separate some time to have some fun and enjoy the summer that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, one of the things that is on our list to talk about today, it actually goes with a conversation I was having with my wife, and then I was also having with you as a teacher. So my wife is involved in the kids ministry of the church. And sometimes we talk about the idea of whether or not parents should disclose to like the church leaders or like people that are working with the kids, if there's anything that they should know about their kid medically. You know, whether it is that their kid has a certain disability, whether it is that they have allergies or sensitivities to stuff. Because sometimes working in kids ministry, she notices that there are kids that require a special care or a different way of addressing them than they would any other kid. And she's kind of like, luckily I can pick up on things and I know how to, you know, address it. But she's like, I really wish the parents would have let me know that there's something going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And then that even like translate to adults. Adults. I said that weird. Adults, where should you as an adult disclose to your church family or church members or church leaders if there's something that they should know about you? You know, we were speaking before about how there's a possibility that people have light sensitivities to stuff. And if the church doesn't know that and they decide to have like special effects night or something like strobing lights and all this stuff or whatever, you know, they don't know that you have a light sensitivity. Even little things, not little things, but even things like allergies, food allergies, you know, these are things that should this be disclosed. So I don't know. It was like a conversation we were having about when do you let your church know you have stuff going on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think in reference to children, right, I think that's extremely important in the sense that, you know, when it comes to church, a lot of times, depending on the style of your church or how you do things, the children kind of, you know, have like their own separate like church activity or something that's happening while the service is going on. So the parent may not always be with the child.
Yeah.
There are other leaders, or even if there's like a VBS that's happening, you know, like for instance, when we have VBS, one of the biggest things you're giving kids food is kind of like allergies, and you'll be surprised. You know, I remember years ago when we first started, like, it's like, oh, I never knew you were allergic to apples. Like, you know, what happens, you know, like little things like that, you know, some people would say and kind of share, you know, but it's something that you have to be mindful of, right? In serving the food. And then it's like also in school, then you have parents that want to bring in things and snacks for the other kids. You also have to be aware, you know, that there's a peanut allergy, so let's not do anything with peanuts and all of that. So it's important. And I think now when it goes into like disabilities or special needs, right, that's something where there are moments where you can tell, right, that, you know, there's something happening there going on. And then there are other moments where they may be performing perfectly fine, but have a certain trigger or a certain moment that really sets them off, where then you have to be prepared and ready to handle that, you know? So I think it's one of those things where, like, you know, coming from a teacher perspective in school, it's always a partnership, right? So I believe it's one of those things where, you know, if someone, let's say, that's leading a group or someone that is involved with children or youth, you kind of pick up on things and you're not sure, right? If the parent is there, there's always a way to, you know, kind of have that open communication, and hopefully the parents are open about that and willing to kind of share if it's a strategy or something. Because a lot of times it could just be, you know, like you said, almost like a certain level of sensitivity that there may be in. You know, certain children are a little extra emotional or express themselves differently or handle correction differently. So there isn't no special needs or disability necessarily involved. It's just you should be aware that, you know, my child, when it comes to loud noises and when it comes to this, they, you know, there's a thing there with that and they don't really like it or all of those things. And like you said, you transition then into adulthood, right? And I think it's even less, right, known at times for individuals if there's something going on, you know? And I guess it really comes down to trust. You know, a lot of times when people have these things, they don't like to share or talk about it. But, you know, for instance, for me being a diabetic, I remember, you know, again, in school, you let people know so they're aware. But even outside of that, it's kind of like, okay, like letting people know in church about, you know, being a diabetic. Some people don't know. Some people do know, you know, what that means, what that entails. So then it's like, it can be kind of also burdensome for the individual to have to constantly kind of share and like discuss and talk about it. You know, even to this day, I still get people asking, oh, so you give yourself shots every day? Or, oh, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. And, you know, you're constantly having to like educate them or like communicate those things. But my people know, you know what I mean? And it's like one of those things where my friends know, I'm a teacher, my students know. You know, because there could be a moment, God forbid, I'm teaching and I don't feel well or something happens. I need them to know, listen, I'm a diabetic. If God forbid anything were to happen, you call the school nurse. This is what you do there. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of have to break that down for people. Some people like doing that, and other people, there's a little more resistance there to kind of being open.
No, it's true. I was reading this article. It was from the perspective of an adult who was autistic. and he was sharing, his experience navigating church and church people or people in general as an autistic person. And one of the things that he was speaking about was how, in the beginning, people would try to make a conversation with him. Like, he speaks about the situation where someone would be like, "Hey, Dave, how was your week been?" And his response to them would be, "My name is David. It was okay." Right. And then so he would respond in a way that he was like, people must have been like very off put by my response. But he's just that's just his way. He was a high functioning autistic person. He just had his quirks and he had his specifics. And he does speak about how, God even had to work in him in that area as someone who was conscious of that to try to make more of an effort, for example. Right. But I think that it also helps for people if they were to know that about you, because there's certain people that have the ability to not get offended by people, that can pick up on the fact that, oh, maybe there's something interesting about this person, or maybe they were just having a bad day, or maybe it doesn't even faze them that they would respond in that way. And then there's other people that would take great offense. We know someone in the church who like, I have the habit, not the habit, but I'll call people, I'll shorten their name, or I'll give them a nickname or whatever it is. But this person was very adamant about, that's not my name. My name is X, Y, and Z. And mind you, I did one of those things. His name is, like the guy from the story, his name is David. They were calling him Dave. I didn't take offense to it. I was like, all right, cool. You don't want to be referred to that way.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying this person is on the spectrum or anything like that, but a situation like that, someone will be like, oh man, it's not that serious. I was, I'm being like I'm being like cool with you, familiar with you. But it is good to know those things about individuals, just so that it gives you a better understanding on how to interact with them.
Yeah.
Like, if you have an understanding of why certain people are the way they are, why they respond the way they do, then it'll not only help you into creating that communication link with them, but then if you see them struggling with other people, or if you see people walking away feeling a certain type of way from an interaction, you'll be like, oh no, don't take it. It's just, it's one of his things. He doesn't like nicknames, or he doesn't like this. He likes to be referred to by his name, and then you can just help facilitate in that area.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, it's even bigger than kind of the special needs conversation, right? Or disability conversation when it comes to the church and how to handle that. Because it's almost like, at the end of the day, not putting it on the same playing field, but everyone kind of has some type of need or some type of something in their life that, they're triggered by, or they have trauma with, or bad experiences with. And, you could be a person that's completely fine and healthy, and someone does something like that. Like you said, you answer the wrong way, you react the wrong way. But I think, again, when you kind of take a step back, when you're in those moments and kind of, have the desire to want to get to know that individual and know why did they respond to that way, or why is it that when they speak, they don't make eye contact, or they look down, or they don't look at me when they, right? All of those things, I think, again, because you love the person, right? And there's love there, you want to know, right? And you want to know so then you could better interact with them. It's one of those things, even, having diabetes, it's like a lot of times people, like, again, will think you can't eat anything, right? Like, you're eating, anything that, doesn't have sugar, zero sugar, which that's not always the case. And then you get the individuals that will see, like, oh, but this is like apple juice. It's fruit. Like, you can eat this. It's not soda. Drink this. It's not soda. And it's like, no, it needs to be diet. Then you have the groups of people that know, right? And this usually happens to me at a lot of functions. And it's like, oh, sorry, there's nothing, like, we don't have diet, So it's like, okay, there's water. But then there's certain places or times where it's like the person will bring like a can, or will bring like a bottle, like, oh, I have this. And it's like, again, it makes you feel like, okay, cool. Like, they remembered, right? Yeah. Now, taking that very small kind of example that, compared to other things, is like very small and insignificant. When you take out of your time, right, to try to interact with someone, try to learn someone, whether, even if it's a kid, right, and you go into the parent, or you're, children's leader, and you're trying to kind of find out, why is it that, these children act this way, or there's this concern happening. The goal is not to be nosy just to find out. The goal is so we can better serve you, right? So within the church, if there's any type of partnership between parents and leaders and, children and parents and all of those things, the end goal is so they are better served in the church. That could be that there are certain children that, loud, like we said, loud noises and high volumes, they don't function well in those environments. How can we better serve them? You know what I mean? Whether it comes to what they see on a screen, whether it's flashing or moving too much, right? And all of those things. They're within a school context. There are students where you scrolling, if you're projecting something, that scroll really gets them like having motion sickness. And it's all those things where you begin to learn the individual, and because you love them, right, and want the best for them, you're willing to make the adjustments and the accommodations so that they can be successful in whatever, right? When the church context, it's we want you to learn. We want you to learn and learn as best as you can, learn the most that you can, so you can go out there and, live for God, right? And fulfill your purpose. So those things may seem insignificant to some, but again, it could be literally life-changing, right, to certain families and certain individuals.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times those changes that you can do while keeping certain individuals in mind are changes that don't affect the rest of the people negatively. You know what I mean? So like if it's someone who has sensitivity to lights and stuff like that, you wanted to do a full-blown strobe light party thing or whatever, if you remove that element and did something else, I don't think everybody else will be affected by that. You know what I mean? There's ways to make people be more at ease and more comfortable, especially in a house of worship, especially when you're doing activities and you're doing things to bring people together in fellowship that may take the organizer, the person putting it together, to have to put a little bit more effort, but it's not going to affect the situation as a whole negatively. Just taking that extra step, taking that extra minute, changing that little thing to something else in order to make it better for one person doesn't affect the results, as a whole.
And it's always like that, balance, because there could always be kind of just like, we live in a hypersensitive culture and world as it is, so there are individuals where, it doesn't have to be a strobe light for them to feel like, they're getting nauseous because it's dark or it's low lighting or, it's overhead lighting or the lights are too bright and I have a migraine. Why are the lights so bright? These are things that I've heard, and it's just those things where you have to just be also as the organizer or leader, and then as the individual suffering from whatever it is. Again, not talking about serious, like crazy disability, special needs, like, individual, but just as an individual that is picky, an individual that has certain preferences. There are individuals, we've spoken about this before when it comes to prayer. I like worship music with words. I don't like music at all. I like instrumentals. I like instrumental as long as it's not piano. I like the soaking worship because it's like the ambient, right? Like it's different things where, again, I'm not accommodating you on certain disabilities or special needs that you may have. I'm accommodating you on a preference of yours that you can also at times put in second place, right? Because in the same way that, you may not like bright lights, there are individuals that may not like, the low light. So it's like, you have to just use that discernment, that wisdom as an organizer, a leader to, see, is this kind of a universal problem? Is this a problem many people can relate to and experience? Is this something that if we change, like you said, is it affecting just the one person? Is it affecting a lot of people? Because then there are moments where for the sake of that one person, you make a change, so it's where you have to just balance and really have that connection with God to have the discernment to know this is kind of more of a preference thing. This is not a serious kind of issue. But then there are moments where, no, this is something that we need to change for the sake of that one person, for them to really receive and for them to really engage and be a part of. We're going to make this change, Yeah,
and I think it's good that you make that clarification because unfortunately there are people that try to abuse the system in a way or try to make things like very about them, and it's like, bro, it really isn't that serious.
And this is in every context. We're talking about church specifically, but this is kind of everywhere.
This is everywhere. Yeah. Where people want everything to change to accommodate them and what their preference is, and it's not a need. It's not something that's dire to them. In those cases, I would say you tell the person to go on their merry way, that you're not going to change it for that reason. And you let the Holy Spirit guide you on how to deliver that message. But specifically, we were speaking about people who it is dire, it is needed for them. And unfortunately, there will be scenarios where that individual just can't go. And I'm talking about the person with the disability. Yeah. Where, unfortunately, this function or this thing is specifically this, and, we can give you options on how to best, get you to be a part of it. But unfortunately, if you cannot, you cannot. Yeah. That's after you try to accommodate. You looked at all the different scenarios and solutions, and none of them work because sometimes events or scenarios are so niche. But a regular general worship service, a Bible study group, something that requires people to just come together to either worship God, read about him, or talk about him, those are scenarios that you can accommodate these people in. Now, if it's a very specific something, I don't know, we're going to go camping, or we're going to a strobe light concert that's specifically that. I'm sorry, I'm not going to tell the organizer you can't have your strobe lights because I have someone who is photosensitive, to those things. Those are things where you use wisdom and you're like, well, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to participate.
Yeah, even like in our church many years ago, or actually a few years ago, we only had one entrance right in the front, and it was steps, multiple steps, and then we had a side entrance or exit entrance, right? But we needed to create a ramp because we didn't really have a ramp. So individuals that came in wheelchairs and things like that, it was very uncomfortable to get them in. Literally, there were, times where people would like pick up the individual in the wheelchair with the wheelchair and like bringing them up the steps. And I remember, when that change was discussed, they created a ramp on the side and all of that. And honestly, it was really for that one individual that would come pretty consistently, throughout the year. But again, it's that one thing where it's like you could look at it as it's just the one individual. We have more people here that don't need a ramp, so it's fine, right? Again, it's like love and wanting the individual to be blessed and edifying. All those things would say, let's create a ramp so it's easier not only for that individual but for those that are trying to help them get to church and have a good experience here. And as time went, the individual no longer came, but the other individuals, right, and the other people that have used that ramp for different things. This Sunday we had someone come in crutches, right? Going up steps obviously could be difficult. They went, through the ramp, right? So it's just little things like that again, people feel seen, they feel heard, they feel loved and acknowledged. I think it's special when you can go to a restaurant or you can go somewhere and it's they have accommodations for you. I think when you go to a church and there are accommodations that are for you, even if it's simply a language one, right? Like, so for instance, here, there are individuals that can come here that can just understand Spanish or just understand English, right? Either way, you're guaranteed to kind of listen to a message that can be translated, right? So if they're speaking in the front in Spanish, someone with the device that we have will be translating the message for you in English and vice versa. So it's that idea of, wow, I go there and, my need is that I only speak and understand Spanish, and this is more like a bilingual church, or it's a youth night, so it's more English, but they see me enough to provide this accommodation where I can also, right, listen to the word and be blessed by it. So again, it's one of those things where it's overlapping and it's so big when it comes to trying to make people have the best experience when they come to a church or they attend an event at your church or attend a service. It's not simply just, opening up the doors and just, having the service and then we all leave. There's a lot of moving parts and things where if you really want to reach people that, need Jesus and need the Lord just as much and want to be blessed and experience worship and word and all of that, then you make the accommodations necessary to make that happen, Yeah,
I agree.
Question, your shirt, it says life is best in the West. Very random. What is this Cali? Like,
I guess so. I think this shirt is cool. I have a design in the back. that you're not gonna be able to see because I'm not gonna turn around for you to see it. But it's I like the shirt. It's cool.
Yeah, okay.
I think my thing. I was talking to my wife about this. If I could always wear black tees with just like a design on it, I'm set. Like that's my thing. Black tee with any type of jeans or slacks or whatever. I'm fine.
Yeah,
with
because the message is serious. Roam the unknown.
Well,
it's sometimes that's what you got to do.
Yeah, and I think that's a great message for you guys to ponder on and to think and ask God to like really.
Right? Are you roaming in the unknown?
There's a lot of people that are roaming in the unknown.
Yeah.
A lot of people put themselves in that situation, and there are other people that are going through processes in their life that they don't understand.
Yeah,
and that's when you have to depend on God. So that was a good little.
That's true. And then there are people that know a lot of things, yet are still roaming in a place that's unknown.
Well, they put themselves there, so that's what happens. So, but yeah,
did they put themselves there? Did God lead them there?
Well, that's debatable.
Will God ever lead you to a place?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. We're just covering all the bases because, there's all these exceptions and stuff. But anyway, listen, we hope that today you leave this conversation, obviously, just thinking.
Wait, I'm sorry. Just a caveat.
No, go ahead.
If there's someone in your church, at your workplace, your neighbor, that you I think suspect is a really bad word, but that you think are someone that has a disability or is on the spectrum or something like that, be very wise on how you approach that. Don't just straight up tell somebody, is there anything wrong with you? Yeah. Or is there something you need to tell me?
It really comes through relationship.
Also, don't assume that there maybe is something. Yeah. Don't label it. Don't assume, oh, you must be this. That's, first of all, is none of your business. Yeah. And if somebody decides to trust you enough to share with you whether or not they're on, the spectrum or they have some other stuff that is going on or whatever, it's your responsibility to hold that information with respect.
Yeah.
And that you also don't now like treat them like a fragile thing because they gave you this information. Respect, understand what that means. If you need clarity on what that means or how you can better help them or facilitate them, you ask them. Yeah. Don't assume. They may just tell you, oh no, I'm just letting you know this in case you see me walk out of something. It may be something like really small that they just want you to be aware. If I do this, don't get mad, don't get offended, don't wonder why I do it. It's because of this. And then the other time they'll give you a whole list. They'll give you a
and it's
whole
with everything, because it's with, are you depressed? Because lately I've been looking at you and you've been, like things like that. It's like there's a way to have that conversation. There's a way to get that information, and it comes through relationship. That's what it is, right? There's no reason for you to meet someone for the first time and start asking these questions, right? If you have certain thoughts about an individual and certain concerns, then through relationship, you find those things out, right? And that's where, again, the person has to know that you're doing this because you love them, you care for them, and you want the best for them, not you're trying to be nosy and trying to be in their business or trying to point out a flaw. So again, that's where you need to have that personal connection with God and discernment to know, how do I handle the situation? How do I approach it? How do I have this conversation? You ask God to help you, open the door, give you the knowledge, give you the words, and it'll come to you. So like I said, we hope that this just sparks your mind to think about maybe something that you've never thought of, maybe a scenario you've never been involved in or in experience yet, but in the future you may, right? How do we navigate this in our churches, in our friendships, in our relationships, in our, people that we spend time with? How do we navigate, right, these conversations and these thoughts? So definitely, we hope that you are blessed and encouraged. We hope that you are enjoying the last few weeks of the summer. And as we start getting into back to school season and all of that, we hope that all the supplies are in the stores. Random question. Does your kids' school, do they share school supplies? So it's like you buy school supplies for the class, not for your.
No, we buy school supplies for the student.
But is that you or like the school? That's how they do it. So like you buy your kids' own supplies, and that's their supplies.
They send us. There's a list available, and then we purchase it. They encourage you to put your name. On it.
Perfect, cool.
Like
well, now lately there's a push, which we can talk about this another time, just a push for shared school supplies. So everyone gets a school supply list, but you're not buying for your child. That will be then put in a pool, right? Where then it gets distributed to the different children, right? Yeah. So it just, again, when you have the plain green folder and then you have the cool graphic one, right? It's like your child, I remember picking out folders that I wanted, that I liked.
Yeah.
You know, not a teacher just giving me
very true
anything.
No, it's true. And I think that, like I said, I think there's pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
You know, there are kids that want the graphic, holographic, 3D,
galaxy,
whatever.
space.
And then there's other kids that just want it red. My son would be that. My youngest, be like, his favorite color is red. He wants a red folder.
Right.
You know, so I think that things like that, it becomes like problematic, I guess.
Yeah.
It's really not. It's one of those things. It depends.
Yeah.
It really depends. Preference.
Yeah. Preference.
I would rather buy my own kids their own things. But, you know.
Yeah, that
tune
was
in
just a
next
random
time
thought.
to find out.
Find out. Find out. Maybe you're buying school supplies and you think it's for your child and it's not. It's for the class. Find out.
And how would you feel about that if you found out it wasn't? Would you change the quality of what you buy? Would you buy something better quality, less quality?
Yep.
That's a matter of the heart. You got to pray about it.
That is true. That's true.
It is.
Wow, that was deep. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. And follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, God Life Culture Podcast, and stay subscribed so you can be notified when we drop a new episode.
Yeah, so thank you once again for tuning into the latest episode of the God Life Culture Podcast. That's
God Life Culture.
Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.